Hey guys, welcome to the next video in a short series in which we are going to go through some SwiftUI Firebase essentials. In the previous video, we built out a user authentication service so that we could store users' data. In this video, we're going to add a search bar feature so that we can search through our users' database and find users within it. It's just like Instagram. When you type in a user's name, you can see all the users that are relevant and have that same name. We will be implementing this similar lookup feature in our application. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so I have the code from our last application already preloaded. If you guys have not yet seen the video, you guys can go back to my last video on the channel and it should have all the code for this application. Otherwise, if you go to GitHub, I will leave a link right here. Then you can get this similar code. Okay, so we're going to start off in our content view. And everything we have in here is pretty much good, except for we are going to rename this profile view into ProfileSearchView. So this just means we're searching for profiles within our application. And also here is a quick look at what our applications look like right now. We have the ability to sign in and also to sign up and create new users. Yeah, as you can see, we have the ability to sign up new users. So everything there is good. Now let's go into this profile view and let's delete everything we have here. And I'm going to rename this file ProfileSearchView so that it aligns with our content view. But before we do that, let's first get into probably the most important part of our application. This is going to be the UserLookupViewModel, and it'll actually store our users that we have queried for. So inside of view models, we can go Command N for a new file and Swift file. And I'm just going to name this UsersLookupViewModel. Okay. So first things first, we want to import a few things. We're going to import Firebase auth, import foundation, import Firebase Firestore, and import Firebase Firestore Swift. Next step, anytime we're making a view model, we'll just say UsersLookupViewModel, and this conforms to observable object. Awesome. Now we can add a publish property, which will be updated. Its updates will be rendered throughout our views. So published var, we can do queried users. So these are the users we queried for. And this will just be a type user array. And we'll set this to an empty array by default. Now we can do private let db equals firestore.firestore. And finally, this code is pretty straightforward. We just have one function. It's going to be func fetch users. We can do from keyword, and this keyword will be a string. Okay. Then we can just do db.collection of users. This file in our database is going to store all the users. And then we want to query, say where field, and this field is keywords for lookup. So you guys haven't seen this yet, but we'll get into it in a second. So where this field array contains, so this field in our database is going to store an array of terms that will reference our user. So we'll say array contains keyword. And then we can just get the documents and pass a closure onto the end, which will give us a query snapshot and an error in. And we're just going to say guard let documents equals query snapshot dot documents. And we also want to make sure that the error equals nil. Otherwise, we can just return. And then it's a matter of just assigning these documents to our queried users. But to do that, we have to first convert them to actual user structs themselves. So we can say self.queried users equals documents dot compact map query document snapshot in, and then we'll say try query document snapshot dot data as user.self. So we're converting each document to a user. Perfect. That's all we need for our user view model. Now we also have to make a few improvements to our user model itself, because there's a few more properties we're going to store. So the first one is going to be a username, which will just be a string. The next, a user ID, which will also be a string. And then we're going to have this computed property called var keywords for lookup. And you'll see what this is in a second, but this is basically a list of keywords. When you type them in, it'll look up them, it'll associate them with this user. So for instance, if I have my name stored as Mark within my database and I type M, Mark's going to come up in one of my query results. But to make this process efficient for doing this kind of string decomposition, we're going to add an extension to the string class. So we'll say extension string and func generate string sequence. And this will just return an array of strings. So as I said earlier, essentially what this does is if it's given some input such as Mark, it would yield an array containing M, MA, MAR, and obviously the full name. So to do this, we can basically just initialize an empty array and then loop from 1 for I in 1 to self.count. So this is the amount of characters. And then we can just do sequences.append string self.prefix of I. And then at the end, return sequences. And also let's guard, so just in case that it's an empty string, we don't return anything. So we can say guard that the self.count is greater than 0. Otherwise, we can return an empty array. Perfect. So we want to generate string sequences for all the properties that matter for our user, or that can be used as an identifier for a user. So username, first name, and last name are the 3 properties we're going to use. So for this, for the keywords for lookup computed property, we're going to say an array of username, and then we're going to generate string sequence for that. We'll also do that for the first name and for the last name. And then also you could type in the full name, that would be perfectly valid as well. So we'll make a string and we'll say self.firstname and space self.lastname. And then we'll just do generate string sequence. And so with this, we're going to have a array of arrays of strings. So we want to actually flatten these and kind of extract them all. So to do that, we can do flat map and then pass a closure where we just take each element. Okay, so that is perfect for our user. That's all we need. So with this user view model and our updates to our user, we're looking good. There's a few other things we need to change though. In particular, inside of our user view model, we don't have any way to store these when we set the data. Essentially, we can't store a computed property inside of Firebase, so we're going to have to set it manually. And to accomplish this, it's going to require a little bit of refactoring within our user view model. So inside of the add and update functions, we're going to change around a few things. First, we're going to say let document equals dbda collection of users document, and then we're going to get rid of this set data at the end, and then we'll call it down here. We'll say document.setData from user. And we also want to add this computed property that we just talked about, the keywords for lookup. So we'll say document.update data. The field is keywords for lookup. And then we can just say user.keywords for lookup. And once again, we have to manually update this property because computed properties are not automatically stored in Firebase. When we say set data, it does not register keywords for lookup because it is a computed property. And let me add parentheses around there, a little error. And also this call can throw, so we'll just say try. And with that being said, everything looks good. We also want to do this for our update function. Because we can change the username and the first name or last name with the update, we also want to make sure to update the keywords for lookup. But essentially this code is the same as the add function, so we can just copy and paste this into our update function. Okay, that is looking good. All the changes have been made to our UserViewModel. Ooh, actually this is giving us a little bit of an error. Let's see what that's all about. Okay, we just want to add a bang operator onto the end of user because we know that the user is authenticated and synced. Okay, with that being good, our UserViewModel, oh, there's giving us an error. Oh, of course, I forgot. We need to actually pass in the user ID property now and a username property. So let's say the user ID is self.userid. We also use the bang operator once more because it's an optional. And we can say that the username is the username we're going to pass in, which we haven't really specified yet, but we will in a second. So username will be a string. And then we'll make the subsequent change inside of our authentication view. Let's just add that into the sign up view. We'll say private var username. And then we can just copy and paste that. And have our binding to our username. And we also probably want to turn off auto capitalization for this guy and disable auto correction. Perfect. And then we also have to pass this in at the bottom like so. And then let's see if that fixes all our errors. It seems to have fixed everything. So now that we have that, it's time to get into our profile search view, which is probably the most important part of the application. This is where we are going to be actually implementing the search bar. So up inside of this, we can do struct ProfileSearchView is a view. And inside of this, we want to define a few properties. The first of which we'll do state object var UsersLookup. And we'll just set this equal to UsersLookupViewModel, initialize that. And we want to have a state var searching for, well, actually let's say keyword, that's more fitting. So this is the keyword we're entering to look up a user with. State var keyword is of type string, and we'll just set that to an empty string by default. Then we want to get into our body, so we'll do var body sum view. And the first thing is we want to create a binding to this keyword property. So we can say let keyword binding equals binding of string. And we need to have a getter and a setter method. So anytime we get this keyword binding, it's just sufficient to say keyword. That'll return the keyword for us. But anytime we set the keyword binding, we want to go into our users lookup model and fetch the users with our keyword. So to do that, we can just say, first let's assign whatever is passed into our keyword. So we'll say keyword equals $0, aka whatever was passed in. And then we also want to say users lookup dot fetch users from keyword. Perfect. And now we can actually get into the view itself. So we'll just have a vstack. And because this is wrapped in a navigation view, let's just do navigation bar hidden of true. And navigation bar title display mode dot inline. So that'll shrink it a little bit for us. And then the frame, we obviously want to set the max width to infinity. and the max height to infinity. Awesome. So within our VStack, we're going to first have an HStack, which will give us a button to sign out. And then we want to have a search bar view. So we're going to implement this down here. We'll say struct, ignore that bad code for a second. There's a lot of errors there. Struct search bar view, and we can just say binding var keyword string, and then we can just say var body some view, and then we want to have a text field with, we'll just say searching for, and then we can just say text is keyword, and then we want to just have auto capitalization turned off, and that should be good. Actually, let's turn off auto, or disable auto correction. We'll set that to true. So that should be good for us. And then we can finally write in our search bar view, pass in for the keyword. We can just say keyword binding. Awesome. And then we want to have a scroll view for looking at our users. So we can say scroll view and then have a for each. So for each users in our user lookup dot queried users, and then the ID will just set as the user ID. Then this is going to pass us a user for each, so we'll say user, and then let's just have a profile bar view, and we'll pass in a user. So this will be like the little displays you see on Instagram when you're searching for a user. So we'll say struct profile bar view type view var user type user var body some view. And for now, just because we aren't going to focus on the styling yet, we can just say HStack. We'll do text of the, we'll just insert the user's name. So we'll say user.username, add a spacer, and some more text. We'll say user.firstname and user last name. Let's also set some frame for this. So we'll say frame max width. We'll set that to infinity. Min height, set that to 100, and that should be good. Let's also add maybe a background color. So we'll say background of color dot yellow. Background of color dot yellow. So hopefully this will show for us. Now let's see, why are we getting some errors? Okay, that was good. Cannot convert. Okay, binding. Okay, so we need to instead add that, I'm pretty sure. Is that right? Okay, that fixes that. All right, and now we can finally build our application and see if everything is running just as it should be. Build was unsuccessful. Okay, let's see what our problem is. Obviously, okay, I see. It all makes sense now. We had weak self, so we have to do it like this. Okay. So that should fix everything for us. Fingers crossed. Okay, the build was successful, thankfully. Now we just have to wait for it to render, but I don't think that should take too long. Sweet. And look at what we have, a fully functioning application. So the first thing we can do is let's click sign up. So we're going to make a few users, because if we go over here into our database, it is looking quite sparse. So let's make a user. I'll just give him a username of Mark Cray. Very original, I know. Name Mark. Last name Cray. Okay, least. That is not what I want. Caret. Okay, so maybe we need to add a disable autocorrection feature to that, but we won't worry about that right now. So we'll say mark @gmail.com, and the password we can go with mark once more. and hit sign up. And bam, we're into our search view. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to see if this is working, is let's type the username that we just signed up with. So we'll say Mark Cray. And as you guys can see, it renders perfectly. So obviously this is looking kind of janky. And also you can see when we do something that is not correct, like maybe you say Jimmy, that doesn't work. So Mark Cray, perfect. I can also type my name, Mark Cray, works. And we can also just type Cray or Mark and it works perfectly. Now we're going to jump into refactoring some of this view so this application does not look really crappy. So inside of our profile search view, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a button so that we can log out. So here I'll just do button action. And we also, I guess now we need to add environment object var UserViewModel. And then we can just say user.signout. And then we'll just make this text. We'll say sign out. We'll add some padding. Add a background of color.blue. Set the text, the foreground color, to white. And let's make it a clip shape of capsule. So that button should be looking pretty now. And let's also go into our search bar view and add a few things that'll make this look much better. So we're going to make this a Z stack so we can stack some elements. We're just going to say rectangle with a foreground color. And let's just make this color.gray. We also want to add some opacity to it so that we can make it a tad bit lighter. So we'll say opacity of 0.5. And then I want to have an H stack. In this I'll put an image of system name. And this is magnifying glass. So it's like a little search icon. And this text field, we can copy and paste this up into here. And that should be looking great. And let me obviously tab these in just so that this code does not look like more of a jungle than it already is. And we're just going to add some padding onto this text field so that it does not overlap. We'll just say leading 13. And then finally, we're going to want to add a frame. We'll just set the height to 40. A corner radius, so this looks smooth, of 13. And once more, some padding. And this profile bar view could also is due for a makeover as well. So we'll do the same thing we kind of did with the Z stack. We'll say Z stack rectangle. Whoa, that was bad misspelling. We'll set the foreground color.gray. Opacity, this time we'll make it a tad bit lighter, put 0.2. Have an H stack. We'll have text. And we'll just say the user.username. So the username will lead us. Spacer, element. And let's copy and paste. Let's copy and paste this. So here we're going to have user.first name space user.last name. Okay. And then we want to have some padding horizontal on this. It's good. The frame is good. Let's add a corner radius of 13 like our last one and add some padding. So now once we build this application, it will not look as ugly as it did in our first round. Okay, the build is done and we can sign in. This time let's make another account so that we can kind of see how two of these would look. Let's make it similar. So let's say username is Marcus Cray, first name Mark, last name, or let's say Marcus, last name Cray, email we'll just say marcus@gmail.com, password Mark will do. And beautiful, we are signed in, and you can already see the view is looking much better. I forgot to add a spacer here so that is it here? No, it would be, yeah, up in this view. There should be a spacer here so that it doesn't look, so this isn't in the middle. But anyways, let's showcase the application a little bit. So if we type in Mark, you can see we get our two users. And as we continue to type, it filters it for us perfectly. Marcus is great. Marcus, awesome. And yeah, so that's it. I mean, you guys can add further features to this. Maybe you want to sort the users by a preference. So if a user is maybe followed by other users, they can be ranked higher within the search. Or if they've been clicked on previously by the user, they can also be ranked higher. But I'm just giving you guys the bare bones implementation and letting you take it and run with it and do whatever you want. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and tune into the next one. I'm going to be continuing to make SwiftUI Firebase videos for the next coming weeks because I'm working on a project with these two technologies. Once again, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.